Samantha. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you. All right. I have a mic. Is it working? Can you hear me? Yay. All right. Good to be here. I see some familiar faces, some from high school, some from church. Anyway, so funny enough, this is my first time at MOPS. When I was little, I didn't have the opportunity to participate in MOPS, but I am so glad that you do, and I hope that each of you are finding the community, support, a sense of belonging and purpose each time that you come. And so, my hope and prayer for our time together is to just share a little bit about what talking to my kids about race has looked like, and to maybe give you some tips and ideas for what those conversations can look like in your family. And I'll start off kind of like you guys did a couple of weeks ago with my shoebox story. And it may not be as elaborate or in-depth, but I thought it would be a good tie-in and give you a sense of who I am. So I will start with, let's see here. So this is a flag of Taiwan. And I was born there, and I won't tell you when, but I was born there and came to the United States when I was 5. So Chinese is my first language, and I was born Pei Chin Liu. So that is my given name. And my family and I came here to the United States when I was 5. And so this is what this represents. And I've grown up, oh, thanks. Yeah, that's perfect. So I've grown up in the Seattle area, on the east side, and yeah, so that's that. And then when I was in high school, I was invited to a high school youth group from some friends, and I didn't grow up in a Christian home. And so they invited me, and I went and didn't really know much about Jesus or the gospel or anything like that. But it was really the Holy Spirit who was just moving in my heart, and the youth pastor shared about what Jesus died on the cross, what Jesus did on the cross, and how he died to save us. And so that message was just so compelling that I responded the first time that I heard it. And a friend of mine from high school discipled me throughout high school, and that is when my walk with Jesus started. So, and then, let's see. Then this is a flag of Peru, and Peru is a country in South America. And I say that not because I think you don't know where Peru is, but it's because when I first went there, I didn't know where it was. So I was in college, and I went to a Christian college in Wheaton, Illinois. And in the summertime, you can go on these service things for like 4 weeks or something like that. And so I was like, maybe I can go to a country that speaks Chinese or Spanish. And so they sent me to Peru, and I got the letter, and I was like, oh, okay, where's Peru? But that kind of started my relationship with the country, the people, the culture, and I do speak Spanish. And so, Chinese was my first language, English is my second, Spanish is my third, and my husband also happens to be from Peru. And so one of the joys for our family is that we try to speak Spanish at home and try to foster that with my girls. And for those of you who may, speak a different language in your home, it's hard. It can be so challenging because they just want to speak English because that's what their friends speak. But we are just trying our best to make it fun and relevant for them. And then I just got this. So Latasha Morrison is the founder of Be the Bridge. And she is really the reason why I started to re-engage in the topic about race in my adult years. So if you remember a while back, we had a conference here at church, and it was a women's conference, and there was a panel discussion about race in the church. And it wasn't, okay, back up. So Latasha did a panel conversation. This was done in Austin, Texas, and then I ended up watching it on my own. And it just kind of stirred up some things and questions that I've always had about, what does my ethnic and racial identity, how does that tie in with my faith? How does that tie in with kind of how we show up at church and in society and all of that? And so she has a nonprofit organization called Be the Bridge and has developed a curriculum that walks small groups through topics like awareness, shame and lament, confession, forgiveness, so on and so forth. And she has now published a book. So this is like maybe a day or two old. So, if you're interested, feel free to look her up on Amazon. But she has really, been the catalyst to just this renewed exploration on my part on what this, means in my life and life of the church. And then last but not least, this is a little something that I picked up in Leavenworth over, was it the summer that we went? And it says, be brave. And I really am genuinely just a little scaredy cat inside. And so I have to be brave when I need to have, tough conversations with my kids, when, things are not as great as they could be with my husband. I need to, show up bravely at work. That has to come up. And then also in these conversations about race too, right? It requires a certain amount of courage, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and speaking here in front of you takes that too. So these are just some elements that speak to kind of who I am and kind of how I'm here with you all today. So in our time together, I kind of want to just hit on like 4 things. And gosh, time is just flying by. Okay, so the first thing is to understand your why. The second thing is to educate yourself. The third is to foster age-appropriate conversations. And then the fourth is to walk the talk. So those are the 4. I don't expect you to remember them, but if you do, maybe your DGL will, give you a prize or something. I don't know. Okay, so the first one. So in talking to our kids about race, why do I want to start with understanding your why? So for those of us who may have been at the volunteer kickoff in September here at church, Pastor Scott started off that time with a little video by an African-American comedian named Michael Jr., and if you look up on YouTube, Know Your Why, Michael Jr., I really recommend you guys giving that a look-see. But basically, his point was, if you know your why, your what becomes a lot more clear, a lot more impactful, and a lot more purposeful. And so I can tell you like what to say to your kids or how to talk to your kids about race, but if you don't understand why you're doing it, it may not be as meaningful. And so I'll kind of tell you what my why is, and then what you'll have the opportunity to do afterwards around your tables, it's one of the discussion questions, is to maybe just process through what your why might be. So for our kids, Fernando and I, we want them to have a strong identity in Christ. We want them to know who they are and whose they are, right? And so part of their identity is definitely their ethnic and cultural background. I want them to be proud of being Taiwanese, Peruvian American. I want them to be proud of how God created their eyes and their hair, and just celebrate the different aspects of the culture and the language that is part of who they are. I also want them to be able to advocate for themselves and for others, because when they go through life, whether it's school or when they grow up and go into the workforce, they may come up against barriers that other people may not. Maybe it's because they're women, maybe it's because they are a woman of color. So that's kind of part of why I do it. So yours may be really simple. I love Jesus, and Jesus says that we need to love God and love our neighbors. And maybe your neighborhood doesn't look very white. Maybe it is becoming more diverse because there's a lot of people that are coming in from different parts of the world because of the different companies that are in our area. And you want to love your neighbors well. It could be that. It could be you're white, you've never really had to engage in these conversations, but you're raising a child, whether you're fostering them or you've adopted them, who is of a different racial ethnic background, and you want to be more aware and educated and be able to help them navigate those waters. So that's the first point. Understand your why. The second is educate yourself. So you can't teach what you don't know, right? And I'm not saying that you need to have a PhD in, racial awareness or social justice before you can have a conversation with your kids about race. Because I sure don't. I don't. And I'm learning all the time. And so what this has looked like for me, and I know we're all busy, right? We're raising kids, working, maybe doing a side business, serving at church. So think about ways that you can weave this into the daily rhythms of your life. This is supposed to be an exploration, something that can foster curiosity and inspiration, not something that is to be burdensome. And so for me, I've read books about Asian American history. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't know this. Like, why didn't they teach this to us in school? I've read books about social justice and racism. I've watched documentaries. Maybe the kids are in bed and you're like, okay, I don't have any more energy to read a book, but I can watch something on Netflix. And so 13th, it's a documentary that talks about the intersection of race and the U.S. prison system. Black Girl in Suburbia talks about race and education. There's so many resources out there. So those are just a couple. I have, listened to people who are people of color, but also people of faith, people who love Jesus. I'll name a few. If any, register with you, just jot their names down and, follow them on Facebook. Check out a book of theirs that they've written. But, Latasha Morrison, Brenda Salter McNeil, she is a professor at SPU, local, a pastor at Quest Church. Daniel Hill, Lena Thompson, Tally Hairston. And so there's a lot of people that we can learn from. And then also the Be the Bridge group. That has just been a wonderful opportunity to have real-life conversations with people in my community, in my church, to kind of walk through that gospel-centered curriculum that I was mentioning earlier. So educate yourself. Yeah, think about what that might look like for you. I have no idea, and everybody's journey may look a little bit different, and that is okay. All right. So, number 3, foster age-appropriate conversations. Okay, kids are probably not going to be down for a really long, lengthy, heavy conversation about race, right? My 7-year-old even tells us when she does something bad, okay, I got it, keep it short. So, depending on kind of what age your kids are, what their capacity is for absorbing information, your kids the best. So it can be something as simple as Imago Dei. What does that mean? The image of God. And did God make everybody? Yes. And did God make people, different skin colors, different hair textures, with different languages and cultures? It can be something just as simple as that. Another way that you can weave in these conversations with your kids is to talk about skin color and just the concept of melanin. So melanin is something that makes our skin lighter or darker, but everybody still has the same value and beauty. And so I kind of want to, with this whole skin color thing, bust a myth. Some of us have heard, right? Kids don't see color, and we kind of tout that as a good thing. Okay, that hasn't really been my experience, and I don't know what your experience has been. But, my kids see color. And it's not a bad thing, right? Like my 7, I keep on saying she's 7. She's now 8. I can't get over it. Okay, so my 8-year-old has said in the past, right? My skin color is a little bit darker than sister's. Yes, it is. Yeah, and God made you that way. You may take more after your dad's side than, mom's side. We recently bit the bullet and purchased an American Girl doll. Okay, please don't judge me. I did it. And so when she was picking out her American Girl doll, she was like looking at the hair and then looking at the skin color. Like, does this match? Well, this I think is a better match, but she doesn't look quite like me. So use those opportunities to talk about race and, just how you are created beautifully, how other people may be created beautifully. You may even say, okay, this doll does not look like you, but yeah, why don't we just, buy a doll that doesn't look like us, and have a conversation around that. What else? Names. You can use that as an opportunity to talk about race, culture, and ethnicity. For our girls, they have an English name, their middle name is Chinese, and then their last name is Spanish. So you can use that as an opportunity to say, this is part of who you are. Or like maybe you're looking through the class roster, and there's certain kids who, may have different sounding names. How do you pronounce that? And encourage them to learn to pronounce the names of their classmates that, may be a little bit more difficult to pronounce. Or ask them like, I wonder, what language they speak, or, easy things like that. Accents, this person has an accent. Isn't that beautiful? They've learned, more than one language. Hair, my hair doesn't look, like this person's hair, but, it's all beautiful, that sort of thing. And so those are just some ideas off the top of my head as kind of ways that we can incorporate just, age-appropriate conversations in our daily lives. And then the last thing is walk the talk. So we can talk to our kids about race and say, God cares about everybody and wants us to, have relationships with people who, don't look like us, don't act like us, don't believe the same things that we do. But if we don't live it out, then it can kind of, ring hollow. So what could this look like in your family's lives? I'll give you some ideas, and you guys kind of take what resonates with you and see what you think. So if you're going to travel, if you have the opportunity to travel, let's say you're going to Hawaii, especially if it's in February, great time of the year to get away from this place. So you can maybe, do some research about the native people from Hawaii. The history there. When you're there, maybe visit some museums. And then even here locally, right, we have a lot of indigenous tribes to our local area. So if you're going to, a part of the area that, is specific to a particular tribe, let's learn a little bit about that, and then let's go there and explore. Museums, there's so many museums here that we can take advantage of. Our Be the Bridge group sponsored an activity over the summer where we visited the Wing Luke Museum in the International District. So I've lived here most of my life. First time that I went, and we took our kids, and they probably weren't as interested. I don't think we hit like the right sections, but anyway, they were like more into the gift shop at the end. But yeah, so but just expose them to different things. Restaurants, right? We all enjoy a meal that we don't have to cook. So instead of like the traditional pizza or macaroni and cheese, okay, maybe we can go to like this local Indian restaurant or this Mexican restaurant and try different things. And then when you're reading books, select books where the principal character may not be a white character. It can be a person of color. And you will be getting a resource list from your DGLs after this. And it will have like a list of books for you to, engage with, a list of books, some of which are, our personal favorites that you can get from the library or purchase off of Amazon. And kind of incorporate that into your daily living. And then obviously relationships, right? Have people over who you're like, oh, they're a neighbor of ours. They may not, English may not be their first language, but we see them all the time and they have kids that are about the same age. Let's set up a play date. Or there's somebody at church and, been seeing them, would like to get to know them better, and then just reach out in that way. So those are some ways that, you can kind of walk the talk. There's more, but I want to be sensitive to the time and just offer you guys the opportunity to ask some questions if you have them. So yeah, what do you think? Any questions? Understand your why, educate yourself, foster age-appropriate conversations, and then walk the talk. Don't be shy. Be brave. Hi. Do you? Awesome. I love it. Yeah, so 13th, that's on Netflix, or at least it was when I saw it. You know how Netflix cycles through stuff. And then Black Girl in Suburbia. So the Lake Washington School District actually showed that, I think, last year, and that was the first time I heard about it. And there's somebody at church who is an educator, and she purchased it and got a copy. I'm not sure if it's accessible otherwise, but if you're interested, maybe we can coordinate with Abby to see if we can get that to you. Yeah. All right, that was an easy one. Anything else? Yes.
Okay, I'll ask two.
Yes. Do it. Yeah.
Has North Shore ever explored in like a small group setting or otherwise Daniel Hill's White Awake book?
Yes, we have. So everybody heard the question, right? So there was a book discussion last year that Lauren led with somebody else. I don't remember who. And so we had a conversation around that. Funny enough, tonight at King's School in Shoreline, he is actually going to be speaking. Yeah. Oh, is it next week? Dang it. Okay, thanks for keeping me honest. So next week, next Thursday, well, good. That gives you some time to plan.
I would just say that if you are a member of North Shore and that opportunity becomes available, it's a very meaningful entry point into educating yourself.
Yeah.
So then here's a harder question.
Sure.
I heard you say along the lines that God wants us to have relationship with people of other ethnicities, people that don't look like us.
Yeah.
What would be your recommendation to us to explore our hearts about whether we say that we want that or that we actually want that? So if we want to draw ourselves into God's light about whether we know that it sounds right to say that versus actually wanting it for our families, what are some suggestions you would have?
Well, I think one is going back to understanding your why, right? Like, what is your why about doing this? Is it because it's like politically correct, or is it because like you know that God is the God of all people, and that the body is made up of different parts? We don't all have the same giftings. We're all not gonna, come from the same place. When we go to heaven and you think about heaven, do you imagine a group of people who look like you, or do you imagine the nations, worshiping at the feet of Jesus? And so if that's the case, then when we pray, may your kingdom come, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, is that something that we just wait for, or is that something that we live out now, right? And I think even speaking as a person of color, like, it's so much easier for me to like stay with the people that I'm familiar with, right? Like if I can just have a group of Asian American friends, right, like that, you know, have similar experiences and we get each other, we like the same things, we laugh at the same things. It's really comfortable, it's great, right? But I lose out on opportunities to hear about, you know, somebody's experience and how they got to know Jesus and experience Jesus on a daily basis, who may have grown up in Africa, or who is African American, or who is Latino or Latina. And so, yeah, I would suggest going back to your why, and then, you know, do we really believe what we say we believe? And I think that's something that we're challenged by every day, right? Not just about race, you know, like um, forgive, forgive your enemy, you know, like do not gossip. You know, do we really believe that and live that out? And so, just kind of taking a really honest inventory about where you're at and where you really want to be, and if your faith and your values are going to guide you in that direction. Yeah, good questions. Go ahead. Yeah.
Would you like ever talk to your kids about what to say or like coach them about how to act if someone is racist towards them?
Yeah.
Or would you just like wait until it happens?
Oh, like do some work prior?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't have an answer right off the top of my head. And that may be because like I haven't done that with my kids yet. You know, there's a part of me that kind of wants to protect them from the world. Um, that's good. I'm not sure. Are there some thoughts?
May I say something about
Yes.
that? Like, I find that it's really easy when you actually turn it and don't focus on the racists that maybe have like received, but just to say like that person is missing maybe something, you know? Because at the end, oh, that makes me feel a bit more intimidated.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I find that at the end, the microphone gives me. Yes. Yeah, I find that at the end we have to find how everything is about like even if it's one community, even if it's a Latin community, Africa, doesn't matter. We always will have people that we will feel more comfortable with, like as in not all Latin people will be my friends. Not all American people will be my friends. Not all European will be my friends. So also just to keep it like not always to put a label of this is racism. It's just simply as if we don't have to be friends with everybody. However, we should um, kind of accept that we all have differences and that we will become friends with a group of people that they can be from all over the world. And that doesn't mean that we are racist with the rest, you know? It's just that I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, I think like it doesn't have to be there doesn't have to be judgment there, right? On kind of what our natural inclinations are, is what I'm no.
I guess not preparing your child specifically to receiving racism as opposed to saying like, look, it happens and that person is the one who has an issue as opposed to like, oh, it's because you're black or oh, it's because you're
Mm-hmm.
Hispanic. I think what you're saying
yeah,
is
yeah,
that that
exactly.
person's the one with the issue and maybe discuss that it's somebody else's problem, not ours. So not make it an identity thing, but as a, it's that person and
That's
approaching
good.
it that way.
That's good.
Yeah, I think so. Because at the end, like I find that knowing about other cultures, knowing just about other people, like here in our own table, right? Like what makes us rich, what makes us become better is the experiences that we can bring to each other,
Yeah.
and that's the way I find that is with people from other cultures too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that everybody from other cultures have to become our friend. However, we should be receptive to how they do things,
Yeah.
because that may make us like richer
Yeah.
on our thoughts or on our culture or our values. I don't know, like
Yeah. That's
the
good.
way I would change.
Yeah, I like that. And then one thought as you were talking is just like there needs to be some intentionality, right? Like, yes, we're not going to be friends with like everybody, right? But I think Jesus was very intentional and countercultural in kind of how he lived. And so, can we be intentional and countercultural in the way that we develop relationships too? And then with your, point about, oh, it's maybe their issue and not yours, it's not an identity thing, maybe even like couching it in the concept of bullying, I wonder if that, would help. So, good question. Yeah, go ahead.
So, and I'm not sure because I've done some reading regarding white privilege, like sort of as a white person, where my blind spots are,
Yeah.
where I don't necessarily see some of my own behaviors as racist.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've done some reading on that, but I haven't really found resources in the Christian community about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I find I actually even read a book about why it's hard for white people to talk about race.
Mm.
Because of the sort of the feeling of like, well, I wasn't part of that. I'm not a racist person, things like that. So I
Right.
guess my question is either resources or information about helping us identify our own as for the people who are white in the group,
Yeah.
our own blind spots or different things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's important. I mean, it's hard to educate yourself about cross-cultural, about other races and ethnicities, but if
Right.
we're passing on our own stereotype behavior and our own prejudices to our children, then
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah, that's great. Wide Awake is a great resource.
InterVarsity Press, and their website is ivpress.com, has a ton of Christian resources that talk about marginalization, talking about racial reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
White Fragility is a great book.
Yeah.
And then if you also Google Christian Community Development Association, they will likely have a lot of Christian resources that are along the lines of this topic.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would like to add, and then I know we need to move on.
Yep.
It is such a journey of learning and humility. I mean, it is incredibly hard. I am a daughter of a mixed race child, and I mean, I have to just remind myself one step at a time in learning the path to prepare her and myself.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I want to add is that I think that we have to be cautious and ask Jesus to really inform our hearts when we say, well, my family's not racist. Like, who of us in this room would likely identify ourselves like, raise your hand if you're racist? Me!
Right.
But racism is systemic and institutionalized as well as individual.
Yep.
And there are ways that I realize I am contributing to the systems without my intention.
Yeah.
And the more that I can be aware of that, the more I have a chance of interrupting that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think we have to be cautious to say to our kids, oh, honey, we're good. It's their problem.
Right.
And I also think that, it is a tricky thing. But
Yeah.
it is a form of bullying.
Mm-hmm.
But it's bullying that has a history unlike other bullying
Yeah.
categories.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. There's a lot behind it. And I think I couldn't have said it better. And it is a process. Lauren and I and some people from North Shore, we went to a conference, and the speaker, Tally Hairston, talked about this journey like a cycle, cyclical, right? It's not like I'm here, and then I'm going to get here, and yay! It's going to be kind of revisiting certain things at different seasons of your life and having greater awareness, gaining greater clarity, being more confident in being an advocate, raising your voice, and kind of being those disruptors as opportunities arise to be able to call out racism and to be intentional about being anti-racist.
That's in Brenda Salter McNeil's book.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to look
Roadmap to racial
Roadmap to Reconciliation.
racial reconciliation. Yeah, that's a good one. It's very practical. That's a very practical book. There's some that are more like heady and theological and some that are more practical. Okay, Jackie's giving me the finger, not in the way that you think that not in that way, but she's saying wrap it up. Okay. Love it.
I just wanted to introduce Lauren really quick. Lauren Neal has been actively involved also with this ministry at our church and had a thought to add.
Yeah. Can I come next to Pam? Okay. I don't want to mess up the mics. Okay. Good morning. My name is Lauren Neal, and I haven't been at MOPS yet this year. I normally stop by. I'm the director of group life here at North Shore, so I get to oversee all of the life groups that are here. And one of them is our Be the Bridge group that Pam referenced. And some of you were talking about resources, and we are actually on November 16th, Saturday morning, going to be doing a White Awake book discussion group. Our first Be the Bridge group is starting tonight, actually, and it's full. And then we will be starting another one in January, sort of kind of a rolling start to some of our groups. But between now and January, if you just want to do some learning, you can jump into that opportunity. There'll be 3 different book discussions this year. Wide Awake on November 16th. In February, there'll be one on Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. And then we're still picking the last book later in the spring. But those are just opportunities to kind of get a taste before you dive into the curriculum opportunity, which is the group setting. But my heart is that these discussions happen less lecture, more relational, more listening to each other's stories. And I couldn't say it better about just holding your hands like this in humility. And if you are in this room and you are white, I would say if you haven't explored your whiteness, which is a unique thing to explore, it's like saying water is wet, since our normative culture tends to be white, that is where I would start, just with really open hands and just kind of exploring what that looks like. And it is a journey, it is a lifelong learning opportunity. So can we just thank Pam for being
Thank
here?
you. Yeah. And I just encourage, can I say one more thing? There are people here who, have been going through this. So take advantage of the experts here in the room and talk to each other and learn from each other and encourage each other in this process. So thank you so much. All right.
Thank you, Pam.
Yeah.
And I want to let you guys know we have an entire resource sheet that we're going to be sending to the DGLs, and they'll be giving it to you. So it has tons of kids' book listed. It has books for reference, some of the ones you mentioned. So there's links to the groups that Lauren introduced. So you'll have all of that in your hands by the end of the day today. So no need to frantically write if you're like, oh. We have a little bit of an abbreviated discussion time so that we can have enough time for our craft. So you guys can hop right into that, and then I'll jump back up with the craft in just a few minutes.